Somebody took issue with the comments I had about LaDainian Tomlinson in my last video concerning the Chargers and Bears game. Now, I didn't mean very much by it. I respect LT. I know he is the best running back in the game as of now. I know he's going to continue to be a superstar in this league for at least this year, probably a couple more years in the future to come. And, I respect the hell out of him. He's an amazing player. I think he could be the best when he retires. But, that aside, what I was more trying to say was, if you look at his numbers so far in his career, especially in 2003, look at how many times he touched the ball. Well over 400. 400 is what I call the dead zone for running backs. If you touch the ball more than 400 times in a season, that's not good, because what has happened throughout history to players like Earl Campbell, soon to be what looks like Larry Johnson, and Jamal Anderson, is if you touch the ball 400 times in one season, you shorten your career. Now, in LT's case, he's had 3 great years since that 400-yard carry season, and he's continued to be great. So maybe he's an exception to the rule. Maybe he's just the kind of running back that just doesn't take the huge beating because of his elusiveness. I don't know. LT has proved a lot to me so far in these last 3 years by continuing to chug along. But I believe that Marty Schottenheimer did overwork him earlier in his career, and I do believe that's going to come back to bite him sooner or later. As of right now, he's at the top of his game. Well, last year he was at the top of his game, but last year was his peak, and when you're at the top, you can only go down. I expect LT to drop off from last year's numbers, and there won't be anything wrong with that because he'll still be a dominant player. That said, I do think they need to lighten the load on him because he was overworked earlier in his career playing for a team with no other playmakers. Now, that's why I say Michael Turner's going to be such a big deal to San Diego this year. I mean, we saw what he did against Chicago. He took 10 carries. That's quite a bit for a backup running back. And he took them for 41 yards. That's a lot better than LT did. And that doesn't mean Turner's better than LT, but that's a sign of things to come. LT is going to pick up the slack. Michael Turner is going to pick up the slack when LT can't. He's going to take carries from LT to help lighten the load. And I think that 1-2 punch might end up getting San Diego to at least the AFC Championship, possibly a Super Bowl. The sky is really the limit with this backfield tandem, and that's all I meant by that. Okay. The same guy also apparently took issue to my comments regarding Charlie Weis. I made a comment insinuating that, Charlie Weis and Romeo Crennel, ever since leaving the Patriots, as they were 2 assistants during the 3 Super Bowl wins, I implied that he's not doing a good job in Notre Dame. And he says, it's not his fault that his team sucks and that he doesn't have a real quarterback. Well, it's not all about that. He's been more or less a disappointment ever since he got to Notre Dame. He's failed to win like that first year, 2005, I believe it was, when they didn't win a bowl game, when they got the game against USC taken away from him in the last seconds. That was a disappointment. I can't remember the exact details of last year because I thought last year was kind of dull for college football. I didn't watch it too much as I would usually, but I understand that Notre Dame did underachieve. And now this year, 0-2 start, not looking good at all. I mean, Weis was expected to do great things even when the Fighting Irish were, in 2005 they were a great team, but they were expected to do better. Last year I believe they were good, but they were expected to do better. That's what I mean. And yes, it is partially his fault his team isn't any good. I mean, he's the head coach. You can't tell me he has nothing to do with who they recruit or who they bring in. And if you're a great coach, you're going to find a way to take your mediocre talent and work around it and work with it to create wins and such. So, I'm saying Charlie Weis was maybe put into a bit of a bad situation. It's far from perfect, but I don't think you can make excuses for him forever. But he's got that long contract down there, so So he's stuck there. So he's going to be there for a long time. So we'll have plenty of time to see what he's made of. Also, maybe I was a little mean to the Jets in my last series of videos. I was just very disappointed in the so-called man genius. I don't think he deserves that title anymore, as I already said. I mean, I thought they could have beaten New England. I had them picked to beat New England, if you guys remember. I thought Mangini was going to go out there, blitz heavy, um, you know, that sort of stuff. That was really the difference between when they beat New England last year and when they didn't, twice. You know, you got to get pressure on Tom Brady. I thought he was going to be able to realize that. And yes, I give credit to the New England offensive line. They were brick walls out there, as you said. And concurrently, the New England defensive line completely dominated the Jets' offensive line. But that being said, you know, part of that is because, well, Mangini has made his bed that he has to lay in. I mean, this offseason, he brought in Kenyon Coleman to play on the line. He brought in David Harris to play inside linebacker. He drafted Darrell Revis, who actually played pretty well, so let's not slam that yet. But he's had the offseason now to fix this defense, and he brought in new faces. He got rid of the veteran Super Bowl winner Kimo von Oelhoffen. He, he had a chance to remake this defense. So if they're just simply physically incapable of getting to Tom Brady and getting past that offensive line, that's part his problem. As for the Jets' offensive line, it's very young, very talented, but very young. And we saw that when Jets quarterbacks went down 5 times. So that's going to get better sooner rather than later. I mentioned a couple times that there were so many injuries this week 1. Already some teams are starting to look a little ugly out there, so I'm going to roll through them real quick. For the Cardinals, they lose Al Johnson for at least 1 week. He's been ruled out against Seattle in Arizona next week. Nasty loss. You know, their offensive line has already had problems as it is. They don't need this. Not after a decent showing for the 49ers. Steve McNair and Jonathan Ogden injured, unknown if they'll miss any time or how much time they'll miss. But you know, maybe it's time for Kyle Bowler to take a shot, as I said the other day. Ogden, however, is irreplaceable. Got to get him back on the field. Kevin Everett, his injury is not as severe as once thought. They say he might be able to walk again. He might even walk out of the hospital. Crazy stuff. I mean, this is a real miracle. If you've been following this story, you'll know that he was expected to be paralyzed for the rest of his life at one point. Also for the Bills, Co Simpson went down. I hear it's a pretty serious injury. Tough loss to the Bills' safety tandem, which I thought was going to be one of the best in the league. Chicago loses Dusty Dvorak and Mike Brown. We remember what happened last year when the Bears lost Mike Brown and Tommy Harris. Now they're already down Mike Brown, possibly for the rest of his career, and their other starting defensive tackle. So I think this season for Chicago is going to come down to Tommy Harris. He was not healthy last year. The Bears' run defense in particular, could not get much done. He's got to play big this year. I think he's more important to the Bears than Cedric Benson or Rex Grossman right now. This season is on his shoulders. Shane Graham and Josh Scobie, 2 kickers for AFC teams, down for the count apparently. So we might be getting to see another glimpse of Mike Vanderjack. John Carney has already signed with Jacksonville. You've got Billy Cundiff, so rough situation for teams that need kickers. Eddie Kennison expected to miss some time for the Chiefs. It's Dwayne Bowe time. And Eddie Kennison was an underrated receiver, so tough loss for Kansas City, a team that I feel is already going to be pretty bad. For Minnesota, Chester Taylor goes down. He might miss some time, but it's okay because all day is there, baby. All day. Keep an eye on him. For the Giants, rough night, O.C. Umenora, Eli Manning, Brandon Jacobs. I have heard they're going to miss about a month each. There goes their offense. There goes whatever was left of their defense. And as I said, Giants, I got 2 names for you, Darren McFadden, Steve Slayton. Just hope you're there when they roll around in the draft. Chad Pennington might miss some time, I don't know, but if he's gone, bye-bye Jets. Lito Shepherd could miss some time. Tough break, but the Eagles do have the secondary depth to overcome. DJ Hackett to miss a month. Pace out for the season. Kelly, Carnell Williams, Jeff Garcia, and big loss for Washington, John Jansen.